Greetings all from Azeroth's court, all ye ne'er-do-wells. Old Selgris here, and today I'm going to talk about my least favorite trope in fiction. Certainly the most annoying trope I find, the chosen one. Now, there's many examples of the chosen one trope. There's, of course, Harry Potter. There's Anakin Skywalker slash Luke Skywalker. Ray Skywalker, aka Ray Palpatine, and many others, most recently, unfortunately, in my opinion, the Doctor from Doctor Who. And I think it's like really bad writing, the chosen one trope. It really is that this person is special from the beginning and it's their destiny to destroy the evil demon lord or the universe spanning or multiverse spanning threat, or whatever the case may be. And the reason old Selgris thinks it is because it takes away all the agency from the individual involved. And also, you know that they can't fail. And people say, oh, well, Selgris, the protagonist is not going to fail no matter what in most stories anyway. Well, that's not always necessarily true. Look at Frodo in The Lord of the Rings. He failed. It was actually a combination of Sam and Gollum that destroyed the ring. Frodo himself couldn't overcome the temptation in the end. And then there are also characters like the Doctor, who did, like Goku in anime, come from a race of beings that one could term exceptional, Time Lords and the Saiyans. But the thing about the Doctor from Doctor Who that always made them special before the timeless child, children or child or whatever, however they're titled, but I've heard it titled different ways, which was an abomination of bad writing. But the thing that always made the Doctor special, similar to Goku, it was the Doctor's interactions with other beings, outside of the Time Lords that killed it, a planet. They were the wandering vagabond who basically saw the suffering of the quote unquote lesser species of the universe and decided to do something about it. There's a great line that the second Doctor says when he's put on trial by the Time Lords at the end of his incarnation. Uh, Peter Troughton, I believe it was, where he says, "Yes, I may be guilty." Paraphrasing, I may be guilty of using my powers to help others, whereas you're guilty of using your immense powers to do nothing. And it really makes you think. But the reason that the Doctor was like this is because, they wandered across the universe through time and space. It's all the suffering of lesser, quote unquote, species. They saw that the universe was far from perfect, and idyllic like it was on Gallifrey, and it touched their hearts. In the case of the Doctor, all my Doctor Who fans will know what I'm talking about there, that reference. And I like this approach better than the chosen one. They're always destined to be good, in most cases from the beginning and to be perfect and to be the paragon of virtue. Goku is another good example of this. Of course, there's the thing about the bump on the head, but just ignoring that for now. It's not really important. But you see that Goku is, and also the bump on the head. I'll just really address that real quick before I move on. That's kind of been contradicted in later iterations of the story, where so the some Saiyans like Ginny, Goku's mother's Ginny, that they're not all violent. But even Bardock did have his honor, as we saw with Spearing Granola and his mother there when he fought the Heaters. So, yeah, the whole thing about all Saiyans being brutal and Goku only not because he got bumped on the head. He did lose his memories, such as he had at that young age. Not, that did have an impact. But I don't think it's so simple as saying his whole personality changed. But getting back to why I like Goku, is similar to why I like the Doctor, because Goku is not, the chosen one from the beginning. I mean, everyone makes, like all the other Saiyans he meets, like his own brother Raditz, Vegeta Nappa. They all make a big deal about his lineage being like a low class warrior. And even in the original version of his backstory and the excellent Bardock father Goku anime from the anime movie from the 90s, it's observed through the scoters that he has a very pitifully low power level, which you can contrast that. It's like 2 or 10 or something, which you can contrast that with a character like Broly, kind of gives off chosen one energy, which already has a battle power of like 10,000 as a newborn infant. And Bardock, the scientists kind of dismiss Goku when he's born because he only has a power level of like 10 or something. So he's like seen as pitiful by Saiyan standard. But then he goes on to become arguably the greatest Saiyan warrior of all time, and certainly one of the most powerful beings in the Dragon Ball multiverse. And he does this through hard work. And also, he learns compassion for people through the different people he meets on Earth and his different instructors like Gohan, Roshi, Kami, King Kai. So it's the totality of his experiences is what I'm saying is that makes him like the good person that he is, and like makes him the antithesis of someone like one of his main nemesis, Frieza, who's completely selfish and self-centered, whereas Goku is giving, generous to a fault, and is willing to allow people the ability to change and show mercy, and also has the heart of a protector. But it's the experiences that he gains along the way, like different people he meets, much like the doctor and the inequality he sees and things like that. The weak basically picking on the strong, like the strong picking on the weak. That's what makes him what he is, and I like that. I like that idea better than the whole chosen one, destined to be great from the beginning. I like someone having to work for it, and also how they gain their through that work, kind of slumming it if you like. That's how they gain their compassion and understanding of quote unquote lesser creatures and lesser races and species than just some chosen one in an ivory tower. Yeah, I don't really like that besides taking away the agency as I mentioned earlier. It also is a more relatable and a more rich narrative journey. And one of the worst examples, in my opinion, of my humble opinion, to use one of my catchphrases, of the chosen one trope in fiction is none other than Anakin Skywalker slash Darth Vader. I've seen like fans of Star Wars excuse everything Vader did because quote unquote it was the will of the Force. He had no agency. Or oh, he's the chosen one. Everything he does is right by default. It's all part of this cosmic plan. Yeah, I don't like that. Anakin always came across to me more as a villain, or at least an anti-hero at best, rather than full-on hero. So his fall, predestined or otherwise, was not tragic in my opinion. It was not tragic at all. He was a very selfish individual. Even George Lucas, who slapped this chosen one moniker on him in the prequels, admits that he's selfish. I mean, there's video clips out there. You can look them up on this very platform where he says that Anakin was selfish and that's why he became Darth Vader and ultimately fell to the dark side. But I feel that when Anakin was just a gifted Jedi, the original backstory for the original trilogy was far more compelling than he was the chosen one and created by the midichlorians. He was going to bring balance to the force because his fall really doesn't mean that much if it's all predestined, in my opinion, because there was nothing he could do to prevent it or anyone else around him. Whereas, like some of the tragic circumstances of him being a slave, his inability to let go, his selfishness, like that all means more if he was just your typical Jedi, be he gifted, but still just a normal Jedi without like a preordained destiny means more. I feel it does. It kind of pulls more at your heartstrings and the like. But where he was destined to do this to begin with, he or none of the characters around him really could change it. And then it becomes just a bunch of puppets on a string, little automatons. There's really no depth to it and no real deeper emotional resonance because it's all pointless. This is all going to happen no matter what. Wouldn't have mattered if Palpatine would have groomed him or not. It wouldn't have mattered if he was a slave or not. It wouldn't have mattered if the Jedi would have accepted him or rejected him or not. Wouldn't have mattered if he had a healthier relationship with Padme or not. None of it would have mattered. So the chosen one trope also, with a lot of these characters, subtracts out agency and any deeper emotional relatability or resonance from their actions. It's very lazy writing. And I have a sneaking suspicion that the reason Anakin in the prequels, like I don't really have any direct evidence to prove this, but my sneaking suspicion is that him being the chosen one was influenced a lot by Deep Space Nine and Benjamin Sisko, him being created by the prophets and the like, which had just come out around that time or just a little before, which I believe premiered in 92 or 93, Deep Space Nine. And then 99, you have The Phantom Menace and the first of the prequels. But also the mechanism of making Anakin the chosen one, the whole M count with the metachlorians being the explanation behind the Force, as opposed to being something more mystical and mysterious in the original trilogy, I think also takes away from the concept behind Star Wars. The fact that anyone could be a Jedi, which they've kind of tried to reintroduce with Filoni, with Sabine, but in the newer Disney Star Wars with the Ahsoka series. But I think there's a lot of pushback to that, and also logically, it doesn't make sense after 2 decades plus of establishing the midichlorians as the whole ability now, to work with the Force there and feel it. Now you're kind of like going back on that. But yeah, in closing, I feel that the chosen one trope is very lazy, poor writing, become over reliant in a lot of Western writing. It's really unnecessary. In old Selgris's opinion, you ne'er do wells. It's unnecessary, and I think, to be honest, in most cases, if you don't use it, makes the story more interesting. It does. If you don't constrain the characters or the narrative with those shackles, because if everything's predetermined, nothing really matters, does it? The whole idea of predestination kind of takes away from the narrative. Well, in most cases. Well, that's all for this video and from Azeroth's court. Fare ye well, you ne'er-do-wells. This is Telgus, signing off for now. Farewell. Bye-bye.